Oh, what are you doing? This is the suit that Andrew bought for you at a great expense, isn't it? And yet you're throwing it away as soon as you get it? Apologize to Andrew from the bottom of your heart. I had just received the newly tailored suit and returned home, where I threw it in the trash in front of my mother-in-law. It was a gift from my husband, Andrew, to celebrate my promotion. It's understandable that my mother-in-law would be angry about the suit being thrown away. However, I had my reasons for doing so, significant enough to drive me to such an action. I am a full-time employee in retail. I believe my sales performance is quite good, and my work attitude should be beyond reproach. About 3 months ago, there had been talks of my promotion. While I love my job, I also enjoy going to concerts in my free time, so a salary increase was something I really wanted. Of course, I am grateful to Andrew for allowing me to go to concerts frequently, and I take care not only of my work in concerts but also of our family. On weekends, it was often the three of us, Andrew, our 3-year-old son Ryan, and myself, going out together. However, lately, Andrew has been busy at work, leading to more weekend workdays. When I have to work on weekends, I usually leave Ryan in his care, and I think it's fair enough. But over the 6 years of our marriage, his weekend workdays were rare, so I felt a slight unease. And when my own workload increased, changes began to occur in my husband. One day, when I had taken the afternoon off, Andrew had taken a leave day to be at home. When I finished my morning work and returned home, I unexpectedly found my mother-in-law there. "Susan? What are you doing here? Where is Andrew?" My mother-in-law, Susan, explained what had happened. "Actually, Andrew called me first thing in the morning. He said it was urgent, and since you were at work, he asked me to come. So now, I'm taking care of Ryan." Looking down, I saw Ryan crying in my mother-in-law's arms. I apologized to my mother-in-law, and later when Andrew returned home, I asked him what he had gone out for. He had unusually come home drunk the night before, and he had said he had no work today since he went out drinking. Therefore, it seemed unlikely that he had left home for work. When I pressed Andrew for an explanation, he appeared flustered. "Oh, a friend of mine, well." Andrew's vague response prompted me to urge him for clarity. "Come on, you can at least tell me what happened, can't you?" Then Andrew took a deep breath and began to speak as if squeezing out the words. "I didn't really want to say this, but a friend of mine got sick, and I went with some others to visit him in the hospital. But Ryan was here, so you could have taken him with you, or you could have visited your friend later by yourself, right?" After a pause, Andrew crossed his arms and looked up at the ceiling. Then, suddenly, he apologized. "I'm really sorry. It's a friend who's been hospitalized. We've been close for a long time. I guess I was just distraught knowing you'd be back in the morning, but I kept thinking I had to go. It was entirely my fault to ask my mother to take care of Ryan. I'm truly sorry." With that, Andrew apologized to me deeply. Given the extent of his actions, I had no choice but to believe him. I had nothing specific to say about Andrew's behavior this time. Given the circumstances, it couldn't be helped. However, when I casually asked for the hospital's name, Andrew hesitated. It was obviously a hospital he had visited. The name should have come to him immediately, but he fumbled, saying, "That hospital, you know, that one." Until then, I had had no choice but to believe him, but his hesitation over the hospital name made me suspect that Andrew might be hiding something. What he was hiding, I couldn't be sure. Given his panicked response, it might be something he couldn't tell his wife. Several possibilities crossed my mind, but given the increase in weekend work, I began to suspect infidelity. However, no clear evidence of infidelity surfaced. I was also overwhelmed with work, so while I thought of Andrew's possible infidelity, I didn't have the time to dwell on it. Then about a month ago, my work achievements were recognized, and my promotion was confirmed. While driving home that day, I couldn't help but shout for joy. I wanted to share this happiness with Andrew and had prepared his and Ryan's favorite dishes. Hours later, Andrew returned home. When he came in, I picked up Ryan and went to greet him at the door. "How's your day, Andrew?" "Actually, today," I started to say, but noticed Andrew's pale, sickly appearance. Concerned, I asked what was wrong. "Ah, it's nothing. I'm just tired today, so I'll eat dinner tomorrow." Andrew seemed out of energy and went straight to bed after his shower. He had never come home in such a state before. What could have happened? The next day, I asked Andrew about the previous day's events. However, Andrew said nothing specific, only mentioning that he was just tired. I suggested he might need to take a day off from work, but he insisted on going, stating he couldn't afford to take a break. I was worried, but I knew arguing wouldn't change his mind. So, while I couldn't just ignore the situation, I kept a close eye on Andrew when he was home. After a while, his complexion improved, and I finally mentioned my promotion that I had been unable to talk about before. "Oh, wow, that's great. You've always worked hard, managing both your job and home. Kate, you're amazing." Andrew didn't usually give such lavish praise, but this time, he did. While I felt happy, I also felt a slight unease. Then, Andrew said this to me. "You know, it might be time for a new suit, don't you think? The one you're currently wearing, wasn't it bought over a year ago?" "That's true. So, will you buy it for me?" I asked jokingly because Andrew usually keeps a tight hold on his wallet and would never buy it. But his response today was different. "Sure, why not get a good one? Maybe a brand that costs around $2,000 or so." I couldn't believe what Andrew was saying and thought it was a joke, so I asked again. "You're joking, right? $2,000. How many suits could I buy with that?" But Andrew denied it was a joke. "You've been promoted. And I really appreciate everything you do, Kate. That's why I wanted to show my gratitude in this way." "Oh, thank you." I decided to indulge in Andrew's generosity and really got a suit that cost around $2,000. Of course, I was happy. However, his unusual kindness, given my suspicions of his infidelity, felt like he was practically asking me to doubt him. Now that work had settled down a bit, I decided to look into Andrew's actions. I had been ignoring the signs due to being busy with work, but if I was going to investigate, now was the time. I promptly hired a private investigator. I had done some investigating myself before, but there's only so much you can find on your own. Plus, I didn't have much time to investigate during the day due to work. That's why I thought it best to leave it to the professionals. 2 weeks after the investigation began, the shocking truth was revealed. Andrew was indeed having an affair. The other woman worked at the same company, apparently in the main office. She was 26 years old. Not only was she significantly younger, but there was more to the story. I couldn't believe my ears when the investigator told me the truth. It appears that there might be a child between your husband and the woman. When I was told this, my heartbeat painfully sped up. No way. How could this be? In a daze, I left and headed home. On my way home, I was lost in thought. Why would he cheat? We have Ryan, what was he thinking? What am I going to do now? I felt nothing but despair about the future. Unfortunately, the timing couldn't be worse because my mother-in-law was supposed to visit that day. Now that I think about it, she said she would come over today after I had talked about my promotion. I don't know what attitude to take when meeting her. I was at a loss. But that wasn't all. The new suit was also ready for pickup today. Since I was going to pick up my mother-in-law, I decided to get the suit at the same time, but knowing about the affair and how much my mother-in-law adored Andrew, I felt terrible. I picked up my mother-in-law from the nearest station and then went to pick up the suit. In the car, my mother-in-law kept praising Andrew. He worked hard to get to where he is now, Kate. And I'm sure your efforts have paid off too. But from now on, you two need to cooperate more as a couple. There's no progress in a marriage without cooperation. I didn't care about her nagging today. I was facing a much bigger issue, so I ignored her words. After picking up the suit, we returned home. Then, my mother-in-law said this. Since we have the opportunity, why don't you try it on? I want to see what it looks like. Now? I was in no mood for that. But after being pressed by my mother-in-law, I reluctantly took out the suit I had just picked up. Then my mother-in-law spoke. Come on, try it on. That cost about $2,000, right? How did you know? My mother-in-law answered as if it was obvious. Well, I heard it from Andrew. He said it's the first time he's bought a suit that expensive. Is that so? But it was the casual remark my mother-in-law made next that struck a chord in me. Andrew said he's always putting a burden on you, Kate, and he's sorry. He wants to keep a good relationship and get along well as a couple from now on. Hearing those words, the sadness I felt turned into a burning anger. I threw the suit I was holding into the trash. I don't want to wear a suit that's meant as an apology for wrongdoing. Seeing my actions, my mother-in-law was so shocked that her mouth hung open. What are you doing? Do you understand what that suit means? To her question, I answered simply. Of course, I understand. That's exactly why I threw it away. At that moment, it seemed like my mother-in-law's anger ignited too. She glared at me with a demonic expression and raised her voice. What are you thinking? Don't you know how much thought Andrew put into buying that suit for you? Even if this is some kind of joke, I won't forgive you. My mother-in-law was furious. If I had been in her position, I might have reacted the same way. But knowing the full story, getting angry seemed impossible. So, I prepared myself to reveal everything to her. Susan, you asked if I knew what thought Andrew put into buying this suit, right? Can you still say that after seeing this? What? Though she was still angry, my mother-in-law listened to me. I then revealed Andrew's affair and showed her the proof. Andrew is having an affair. The other woman is a 26-year-old from our head office. Huh, what? An affair. Until just moments ago, my mother-in-law had been visibly angry, but upon hearing the fact of the affair and learning about the other woman's identity, she seemed to deflate suddenly. Upon seeing the evidence of Andrew's affair, my mother-in-law was left speechless. When I revealed that there was a child between Andrew and his affair partner, my mother-in-law was unable to utter a single word. My mother-in-law turned pale, knowing everything. I couldn't let her collapse here, so I laid her on the sofa to recover. An hour later, my mother-in-law finally spoke. He was having an affair. Why would he do such a thing? She said this while holding her head in her hands. Then, I heard from my mother-in-law that apparently, her husband had also had an affair. It seems my in-laws had separated because of that. Andrew knew how much his mother had suffered, so she thought he would never do such a thing. That's probably why the shock was so great. However, my mother-in-law's expression changed at this point. Until today, I intended to always stand by him as his mother. But if he is walking the same path as his father, I will fully deny him. And this time, I'm 100% on your side. My mother-in-law grabbed my hand and said this. I always thought of her as a nagging mother-in-law, but at this moment, I felt she was somewhat reliable. Thus, with the unexpected ally of my mother-in-law on my side, I vowed to punish Andrew. Later on. I am done for today, and I was about to head home when Andrew called me. Can we talk now? Andrew's voice sounded calm but also seemed hurried. I readily agreed and moved to his mother house nearby where he suggested we meet. I could guess what it was about, but I went anyway. Inside, I found my mother-in-law with a stern expression and Andrew, who was constantly looking down. As soon as Andrew noticed my arrival, he suddenly stood up and addressed me. "Kate, why did you do that? Isn't it a bit much to go that far?" Andrew already seemed tired, probably troubled by the other woman. At that point, I feigned ignorance. "What's wrong? You're being so sudden, I don't understand what you mean." Andrew couldn't bring himself to admit his affair directly and was making roundabout excuses. At first, I found his reaction amusing and watched him, but after a while, I got bored and confronted him about the affair. "You came today about the affair, right? You should have just said so from the start. Has my spreading the word to the affair partner's relatives caused some trouble?" Andrew looked guilty again and averted his eyes. In fact, I had revealed to the affair partner's parents and relatives that the two were having an affair and that there was a child from the affair. It was kind of a gamble. If the other family had been lenient about the affair, it might have been disadvantageous for me. However, the affair partner's family was furious at her and promised they'd never let her meet him again. Apparently, Andrew, having secretly heard about this from the woman he was having an affair with, contacted me in a panic. "How much do you know?" "I know about you and her having a child." Andrew let out a heavy sigh. "So basically everything, huh?" By the way, the days when Andrew came home looking exhausted over the past few months. It seems those were when he found out about the child with the other woman. He was depressed, not knowing what to do. It's truly heartbreaking that a child, innocent of any wrongdoing, is branded with the worst label from the start due to selfish actions. If anything, I wish Andrew and the woman would experience a living hell for the rest of their lives. Then I asked about the future. "What are you planning to do now? Are you thinking properly about Ryan?" However, my words didn't seem to reach Andrew, and unbelievably, he became defiant. "What can I do? It's not like I planned for the child to happen." At Andrew's utterly irresponsible words, I was on the verge of exploding. However, it was surprisingly my mother-in-law who lost her temper first. "Don't joke with me. You think it's unintended or can't be helped for a child coming into this world through your impure love? What do you think children are?" My mother-in-law's roar echoed throughout the house. Her shouting woke up Ryan, who had been napping in the house. Shocked by my mother-in-law's anger, Andrew started to tremble. To this, my mother-in-law delivered her final blow. "If you had grown up properly, I would have been by your side until my dying breath. But now, it's over. I disown you. Make sure you pay child support for Ryan and compensation to Kate for your behavior. And since I disown you, don't ask me for anything ever again. You might plan to never repay the money you borrowed from me, but make sure you do. If you don't, I'll use a lawyer or whatever necessary to get it back." But how could? Andrew's face was the very picture of despair. Thus, this chapter came to a close. After that, Andrew and I divorced. I filed for compensation for the deceptive act from Andrew, and additionally, Andrew began to transfer child support. Then, Andrew and his affair partner naturally drifted apart. Andrew, whose spending had become extravagant since the affair, still needed money. He tried to ask relatives for money secretly from my mother-in-law, but she had thoroughly prepared for this too. She had informed all the relatives about the situation and told them to turn Andrew away if he approached them. As a result, all relatives treated him coldly, and for Andrew, who had only his relatives to rely on, it must have felt like everything was taken away. A tragedy also befell the affair partner. It seems the child was born, but after the birth, she was told that her parents and relatives would raise the child, and she was driven out of the house. The reason was that she had misused the family's money and incurred debts. The parents of the affair partner, believing the child born from the affair was innocent, decided to take responsibility and raise the child indefinitely. As a result, she lost her job and credibility, and now she can only work in the nightlife industry. However, things worsened, and after overworking herself to make money, she fell ill and is now in a very poor state, both physically and mentally, a shadow of her former self. Since then, I have moved and am living happily with Ryan. The move made commuting to work easier. Being just the two of us isn't all bad. The time Ryan and I spend alone together has increased more than ever, and we go out and have fun on the weekends. I hope we can always remain a close and loving parent and child.